Good afternoon. Good morning, everyone from across the globe. Distinguished professors, esteemed scholars, respected students, faculty members, learned practitioners. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the EU-Indo-Pacific Jean Monnet teaching model, an exciting cross-continental academic collaboration hosted virtually from the intellectual hub of Europe, UC Louvain, St. Louis, Brazil, and brought to life in the partnership with the Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore, India. Today, we are not just launching a course, we are launching a conversation, a bold, forward-looking dialogue between Europe and the Indo-Pacific, a time when the region is rapidly becoming the heartbeat of global change, be in the trade, technology, and geopolitics. Over the next 4 days, we will dive into the EU legal policy and frameworks that examine the ripple effect of the across Indo-Pacific region. This is not just learning about laws. It is about decoding global power shift, understanding regulatory diplomacy, and rethinking about our shared future. As the coordinator of this program, 2025 EU Indo-Pacific Jean Monnet model, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to what I hope it will be an eye-opening and transformative journey. This initiative is a result of a robust partnership between UC Louvain, St. Louis, one of the Belgian most respected universities, ranked in top 180 of worldwide by the QS ranking of the universities, and the Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore, an institution with the deep academic heritage and forward-thinking spirit. It is also my great honor to acknowledge the architect of this program, Professor Dr. Nicholas Desatelier, Jean Monnet Chair, full Professor of Law at UC Louvain University. Professor Nicholas is not just known for his name in legal academia, but he's a force. His scholarship in environmental law in EU law is a cornerstone of modern legal thought. His book in Oxford University Press, such as Environmental Principle, from the political slogans to the legal rules, are widely cited, more than 909. And to give a summary of this sense of skills, his work is like 4,088 citation till today morning, and his index is 27, H index, and I index in Google Scholar 57. In addition to that, Sir has got 1,57,000 YouTube followers. These are a rare feat in the legal academia. But these are numbers, and these numbers are only part of the story. Those who knows about Professor Nicholas speak first of his generosity, humility, and about his dedication, mentoring the next generation. Just last month, he was in Uganda, and last week, which returned yesterday from Germany, teaching and mentoring youth. This kind of commitment he brings, and thanks to his visions that brings the program, and made a reality that a special spotlight on India. Professor Nicholas, we deeply thank you for your love for India and your passion for the building academic bridge across the borders. We are also eagerly await for your visit to Mysore, a city known for its heritage, its GI-tagged treasures, colorful Dasara festivals, and also the magic of Mysore Palace. We are also honored to be guided by another brilliant young mind, Professor Sebastian Tertius, Faculty of Law at University Pompeu Fabra at Spain. His research in digital market and EU strategy offers a critical lens for understanding how EU laws and policies resonate globally, and especially in the fast evolving Indo-Pacific. We're also grateful for Professor Benjamin, Dean Faculty of Law, Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore, for his continuous support and entrusting this work to me. This is not just a certificate course, it is a launchpad. a launchpad to engage with the world leading legal mind, explore EU's evolving role in the global order, walk away not just informed, but empowered. What makes this program more special for us? It is entirely free, no registration, no tuition fees, just meritorious motivation and desirous to learn. Let us think of this not just as a model, but a movement forward, reimagining law as a bridge between the region, system, and the people, from Belgium to Mysore. Before we begin, allow me to honor introducing our distinguished speakers, whose work shaped the legal landscape across the continents, not a country. Our chief guest, Professor Nicolas de Sadlier, a titan of environmental law and mentor to many. It is followed by our keynote speaker, Professor Shireen Awaslo, NS, Professor of Law at National Law University of Juridical Science, Kolkata, India. He is also a visionary of technology and IP law. And it is followed that we have our guest of honor, Professor Sudhakar, Professor of Law at National Law University of Juridical Science, Calcutta. Sir is expert and known for public international law. Then we have a distinguished speaker, Professor Sebastian Fercius, whose insight in EU and digital regulations promises to provoke and inspire more. And a special note of gratitude to Professor Benjamin, who presides the program, and our ambitious young lady, Miss Sarah Benjamin, who made also his contribution to this program. Let me share briefly ahead what we have for the next 4 days. This program is a 40 hours. It is an academic journey, will take us through free and fair sustainable trade, how EU's investment trade shape the globally and global commerce, strategic autonomy and investment screening, which Sir will deep dive for the students into the EU's economic security toolkits, and the sustainability in regulations, that is including understanding Green Deal with regard to the carbon due diligence policy, and digital strategy and data governance, which will be discussed how EU's law reshaping the global rules and order. It is including artificial intelligence, privacy rights, and other platforms. The last part of the program, it would be about EU and India's investment relation, which will be discussed about the framework surrounding BITs, particularly in the context of EU Green Deal and digital market. And this course also will be discussed about how labor class will be included in BITs between EU and India. So each of these sessions is designated to be intellectually rigorous, globally relevant, and professionally enriching. You will leave this course not as just for a new knowledge, but you will understand a strong sense of the purpose of the law and the policy. On that note, it is my pleasure now to invite Professor M.S. Benjamin to welcome the esteemed dignitaries and the participants. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Kudrat. Good afternoon or good evening, depending upon the time and the place where you are. Distinguished dignitaries, esteemed speakers, Dr. Nicolas D. Sadlier, Dr. Srinivas N.S., Dr. TVR, TVG N.S. Sudhakar, Dr. Sebastian Casio, dear participants, and ladies and gentlemen. As a Dean, Faculty of Law, and Chairman, Department of Law, University of Mysore, Karnataka, India, I consider it is my bounden duty to welcome you all to this 3-day teaching program on EU-Indo-Pacific Monnet module. This is organized by the Department of Law, University of Mysore, Karnataka, in collaboration with UC Leuven St. Louis University, Brussels, Belgium. In recent years, EU investment laws have undergone tremendous changes with a view to increase economic resilience, sustainability, and fair competition. These developments not only impact member states of the European Union, but also Indo-Pacific region. Indo-Pacific is a region of economic importance. EU investment laws, digital marketing regulations, digital service law, EU Green Deal, Artificial Intelligence Act, bilateral cooperation with India through the Free Trade Agreement have become vital tools in shaping how European trade unions, the relations interact with Indo-Pacific markets. These developments influence inflow of capital, foster sustainable economic growth, and ensure protection to assets and technologies. We are honored to have with us Dr. Nicholas D. Sedelaire, Professor Jean Monnet Chair, UC Louvain St. Louis University, Brussels, Belgium, as our chief guest for this inaugural program. Sir, on behalf of the Department of Law, University of Mysore, Karnataka, I heartily welcome you to this international program. We have with us Dr. Srinivasulu NS, Professor for Law, West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata, West Bengal, India. As a keynote speaker, I welcome you to this inaugural session. In fact, Professor Srinivasulu always supports and guides me in conducting academic activities. Professor Srinivasulu, I heartily welcome you to the program. I also extend a warm welcome to Dr. TVG NS Sudhakar, guest of honors for today's program. Dr. TVG NS Sudhakar is Professor of Law, West Bengal National University of Juridical Science, West Bengal, India. Sir, on behalf of the Department of Law, University of Mysore, I heartily welcome you to the program. I also welcome Dr. Sebastian Casio, lecturer in law, University of Pamplona, Fabria, Spain. All participants and members of the organizer team, I once again welcome you all to the program. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. It is my pleasure now to start with our esteemed chief guest, Professor Nicholas. Before sir begins, I would like to request my colleague to introduce sir, then it is followed by sir's speech.
We are deeply honored to be joined by an eminent scholar whose work has significantly shaped the fields of environmental law, European Union law, and comparative legal studies, Professor Nicholas D. Sedelaire. Professor D. Sedelaire is the Jean Monnet Chair of European Union Law at St. Louis University in Brussels, a position that reflects both his academic excellence and his long-standing commitment to advancing European Union legal studies. He also holds a part-time professorship at the Université Catholique de Louvain, further enriching the academic landscape with his interdisciplinary expertise. Over the years, Professor D. Sedelaire has brought his scholarship to institutions across the world, serving as a guest or visiting professor in Australia, China, Peru, South Africa, the United States, and throughout Europe. His teaching areas include European Union law, international environmental law, comparative tort law, and public health and consumer protection within the European Union legal framework. He has held prestigious academic chairs such as the Marie Curie Chair on Risk Assessment and Risk Management at the University of Oslo, and the Claverbill Chair on Chemical Law. He is also a prolific contributor to legal scholarship, serving on the editorial boards of leading journals, including the European Journal of Risk Regulation, and the Journal for European Environmental and Planning Law. In addition to his teaching and writing, Professor D. Sadlier has advised various national and international bodies, including the European Commission, and has been actively involved in expert networks such as Avaseta and Client Earth, which promote the development and enforcement of environmental law in Europe. Fluent in several languages and internationally engaged, Professor D. Satya is not only a legal academic of exceptional stature, but also a committed mentor, having supervised doctoral research and contributed to legal education at all levels. It is indeed a privilege for all of us, students and faculty alike, to learn from a scholar whose work seamlessly bridges academic rigor, policy relevance, and international collaboration. Please join me in extending a very warm and respectful welcome to Professor Nicholas D. Sadlier.
Sir, the floor is yours. Yes.
Thank you very much indeed for this welcome. And maybe first and foremost, I would like to stress that this 3 days teaching program is timely. Why is it timely? Perhaps you are aware that EU is feeling rather isolated regarding a new tariff war that started in March of this year. The regional conflicts, be it in Ukraine or in the Middle East, that are not abating, that are actually been worsening these last days. In addition, the EU is also struggling internally to find the right balance between the centripetal and the centrifugal forces. So a majority of Europeans are favoring a greater level of integration without embarking upon a conflict. However, a number of other Europeans parliamentary elections and presidential elections were organized in Romania and in Poland, and we really saw a dividing line between Eurosceptic political parties and center-left, center-right political parties supporting further integration. So the EU is relatively strong economically, thanks to its internal market on the one hand, thanks to this trade policy on the other. Nevertheless, it's could be looked at as a colosseum on clay feet. What matters for lawyers and for PhD students, for law students, is that EU is a genuine legal fabric. EU adopts decisions, directives, regulations that are falling short of being soft law or traditional international law. These legislations or these regulations do have a deep impact upon the socio-economic activities, not only across Europe, but also externally. And the GDPR is a case in point. We shall comment upon that regulation tomorrow. The former legislature of the EU that ended last December succeeded in embarking upon two major reforms. On the one hand, digital economy. That will be the main topic of tomorrow's lectures, with the adoptions of the Artificial Intelligence Act, the Digital Market Act, and the Digital Service Act. following this GDPR, and one will realize how complicated, from a legal perspective, these regulations are. On the other hand, the EU, in somewhat 2-3 years, succeeded in adopting a flurry of directives and regulations leading to the decarbonizations of the economy, leading to a control of value chains, leading to a stronger strategic autonomy, be it with respect to energy, be it with respect to materials, products, substances. So the EU has been embarking upon a two-pronged approach: digital economy that must be decarbonized. But this is indeed the first group of states, the first cluster of states deciding to move on and to face new challenges. And that brings me to a third remark, is the relationship with the Indo-Pacific region, and in particular with India. There are many links, cultural, historical, social, economic, ethnic links between the different continents. And what's happening today, be it the tariff war, be it the 3 years war in Ukraine that has been probably led to close to 900,000 or 1 million deaths or heavily injured persons and a high level of destructions, the EU is obligated to find new ways, to pave new ways as a matter of industrial cooperation, be it with South America, with the Mercosur, be it with its African partners, at least to stop illegal immigration, be it with the Indo-Pacific regions. And in that connection, the success obtained in trade negotiations with South Korea, Japan, Singapore, Vietnam, is leading the EU to conclude new trade treaties with Indonesia and India. And these lectures are timely because the negotiations are ongoing between the EU and India, and will probably lead to the signature and the conclusions of treaties embracing public procurement, agricultural product, sanitary and phytosanitary measures, environmental labor protections. And so the aim of the lectures is to provide to the participant a global pictures of these legal fabrics, the ways in which the legislation are being adopted, the legal effects of these legislations on companies, on individuals, but also regarding trade and foreign policy, the conclusions of agreement, because the key issue here will be the forthcoming free trade agreement that might be concluded between the EU and India. I would like to thank warmly Dean Benjamin and Mr. Sayed for firstly invited me last December to take part in your conference on investment and IPRs, and then immediately you agreed upon the idea to carve out an innovative teaching program, and hopefully it is going to be a first step in the cooperation between our two universities. Perhaps a last word. These activities are sponsored thanks to a very small fund from the EU Education Agency. So the EU is not competent to harmonize education. So education is still national matters, not subject to any harmonization measure, but nothing stops the EU to support financially research as well as innovative education program. And the Jean Monnet programs, I'm holding a chair, but I'm holding also this Jean Monnet model, aim at disseminating knowledge in human science, be it law, be it political science, be it economics, about the EU's achievements. Of course, these programs are academic programs, so we want Sébastien Fassiot and myself speak on behalf of the EU, although we strongly believe of the added value of this integration project. We have no other ways, so that's our strong belief. But we won't speak on behalf of an EU institutions. We are academics, and sometimes we might be quite critical. But the aim will be to explain the complexity of, on the one hand, this legal fabric, the decision-making process, because the EU, in contrast to India, is not a federation. It's a union between 27 states, and other states are joining time and again this union. The union might increase in 10 years and reach the border, the Russian border, up to Belarus. And so this is quite complex. But in addition, tomorrow and on Wednesday, we shall address much more technically complicated legislations, be it international artificial legislation, or be it the fishery legislation. So there won't be any shortage of illustrations of the strength of EU law, but also its ingrained difficulties. So that will be the aim of these 3 days sessions, and I would like again to warm thankfully you team for supporting this initiative. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful thought. Now it is my pleasure to invite Professor Srinivasulu Ines, Professor of Law in UGS Kolkata. Before sir begins with his speech, let us introduce him. I would like to request Ms. Sarah, please introduce her, then we shall listen to his speech.
It is a matter of great honor and privilege to welcome a truly distinguished academician and legal scholar to today's session, Professor Dr. Srinivasulu Ines, currently serving as Professor of Law at the National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. Professor Srinivasulu is a widely respected figure in both national and international academic circles. He is a distinguished member of the International Council of Jurists, London, and a scientific member of the Canadian Institute for International Law, Ontario, Canada. He is also affiliated with the World Commission for Human Rights, London, reflecting his global commitment to advancing the rule of law and human rights. Beyond academia, Professor Srinivasulu has played a pivotal role in shaping public policy. He has worked with various ministries under the Government of India, including the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Human Resource Development, and Ministry of Transport, as well as with the University Grants Commission. He has also offered policy advice to several state governments, including Karnataka, West Bengal, Assam, and Goa, especially on matters of legal education and law reform. Professor Srinivasulu's blend of deep academic scholarship and practical policy engagement makes him a rare and valuable resource in the field of legal education. His insights are bound to enrich our understanding and inspire meaningful dialogue among us. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Srinivasulu Ines.
Thank you, Sarah. Sir, the floor
Thank
is
you.
yours. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. Since it is a summer vacation time and we have break at our university, I'm little away from my office. I'm near some resort in Visakhapatnam, Arku Valley, which is also having that GI that Hashim mentioned. Arku coffee is GI protected coffee. So now currently I'm endorsing it. That's why I'm little informal, but my speech will be very formal. That I will assure you. Thank you, Professor, my dearest Professor Benjamin, who is though my senior, but he is like my friend. Thanks for having me and the love and affection that is continuing from past 20 years down the line. Professor Nicholas, the great scholar. In fact, I was awaiting, in fact, to meet him virtually and through University of Mysore. Today it is happening, and also I'm happy that today I could, have my colleague and my elder brother, Professor Sudhakar, who is also in the line today on the board, who is an authority on international law. And in fact, whatever I have now knowledge on international law, actually I have picked up from him while talking to him, while discussing with him, and things like that. And today, since I am asked to speak on European law, I'll be trying to portray a perspective wherein the entire legal gamut that we are having today across the globe, including international law, for which we are all indebted to European Union, because the imperialistic lawmaking process or the codified lawmaking process, whatever you call it as, it all began in European Union and UK in particular. We all know that there was no place in the entire globe, right, where the UK's European Union's sun will never set. Right, wherein the entire globe was a colony of UK or Europe. And that was such kind of influence they had, not only in terms of governing and taking control of the entire world, but as well in convincing, in bringing that social consciousness among one and all, wherein they have contributed, Europeans have contributed immensely to the not only to the lawmaking process and as well in imbibing the kind of culture in one and all. Like the kind of practice that we have, the kind of culture, traditions, rituals, whatever we have. And now we are trying to cement it, we are trying to freeze it, we are trying to acknowledge, propagate, all that has begun actually from European Union, who are very rich in terms of their culture, in terms of their tradition, and in terms of the way they treat themselves, in terms of the way they try to treat others as well. The social consciousness, which is the hallmark of lawmaking process, where the consciousness of the people, which will be resulted in lawmaking process, it all began in European Union. And I believe that we all know that most of the jurists that we remember or study in the process of learning jurisprudence or legal theory, most of them are from European Union, right? Very few of them are from rest of the world, say USA and other nations. So that gives an indication that how much immense contribution European Union, European law has got, in fact, in the entire global lawmaking process, including that of international law. I'll give one example. We have seen in the past 100 years of this codified lawmaking process, wherein there are certain decades through which we have developed a particular facet of law. Labor laws, the evolution of International Labour Organization, labor laws in few decades, human rights related laws in few decades, environmental related laws in few decades, then aftermath of 80s, this commercial laws, consumer centric laws, like this different phases of lawmaking process at international level were shaped, structured by the European Union, right? And that civilized process of lawmaking is the hallmark of European Union's law. Now, even in the contemporary times, when we talk about globalization and reverse globalization and all that, right? The reverse globalization or globalization, whatever we call it as, again, it is the contribution of European Union, right? We wanted to have entire world into a single global governance structure, and again we are going back to our locally customized governance structure. In all this process, the thinking process or thought process of European Unions have actually helped us a lot. That's why I say that the entire lawmaking process across the globe, the imperialistic lawmaking process or codified lawmaking process, for that we are indebted to European Union, or we are indebted to European law. It could be from Roman, it could be from German, it could be from Greece, right? Alongside UK, these states have contributed immensely or a lot in terms of lawmaking process. We all know that even civilization started over there. Maybe South Asian people say that it's Harappa and Mohenjo-daro in the Indian subcontinent. Egypt, Africans will say, and Europeans would say that it's from, say, Italy and Greece, where from it all began. Of course, Italy, Greece border, Egypt border, and this Gaza Strip border, and they're all actually around only. If you can visualize the world map, right? Greece, Italy, Egypt, and the Gaza Strip and Indus Valley, right? They come within maybe 500 to 1,000 kilometers radius only. So when we say that civilization, human life has begun in this area, around these areas, for that also there is a lot of water. And similarly, not only the beginning of life, but beginning of lawmaking process also has begun from over there. We have we have also now teaching our students that right earlier, say in the 16th century, 17th century, law used to be something which is given by the church, right? And that also had begun from European Union only. Something which is getting consolidated, coming out of the mouth of voice of the church father or somebody who is holding that the top position, who is respected, whose words are heard by, followed by people around, right? That culture, that tradition, right? And that it started in European Union and UK only, and slowly, gradually, and it resulted into the codified process of lawmaking. As I mentioned previously, briefly, you look at human rights mechanism that we have got, ranging from your Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1966 covenants of economic and civil rights, political rights, and all that. That entire human rights euphoria, whatever you call it as, for that, if you look back at the history of the human rights law, evolution of human rights law, it can be traced back to European Union. Still, environment law, the polluter pay principle, all that, respecting your nature, respecting your vicinities, ensuring the free air, free water. I mean, when I say free, pollution-free air, pollution-free water, wholesome environment. For all that, again, it is coming from European Union. They started it, and the entire world followed it. And then when it comes to respecting our own identity, ethnicity, culture, ourselves, our own sovereignty, and all that, again, it's European Union. Here, I would like to bring two very popular international treaties and conventions. I will try to figure out how exactly the European Union played its very wide, vital, and important role. The most popular international law ever. My colleague Professor Zakar will agree with me that this is Convention on Biological Diversity, having 194 member nations. Right, the most popular international law ever. Right. After that, TRIPS Agreement, having 178 member nations. These two popular laws are there, which are actually now ruling the day. Public law, your Convention on Biological Diversity, and commercial law, your TRIPS Agreement. Most of the legal relations, most of the legal diplomacy, international relations now actually influenced by these two popular most conventions that we're having now, right? And Convention on Biological Diversity, it is the forethought of European Union. TRIPS Agreement, of course, we all know where from it came, and all the flexibilities, exceptions and exemptions that we have under the commercial law agreement, that is your TRIPS agreement, all your entire gamut of world trade law, right? Having more than 20 commercial or trade law related agreements. For all that, all the exceptions and exemptions, right? That we have got for all those 20 agreements, all those exceptions are coming from European Union. For example, Article 27 under the TRIPS agreement, right? Medical methods, surgical methods, right? The law of nature, right? All these things should not be subjected to commercialization or IP. It's coming from European Union. Similarly, as I mentioned, the entire Convention on Biological Diversity and connected Nagoya Protocol or Cartagena Protocol on biosafety, all these things are greatly influenced by European Union. And it goes without saying that even today, US is not party to it, Convention on Biological Diversity, right? So you take any international legal instrument for that matter, either European Union has nurtured it or it has structured it. When I say nurtured, it has actually given birth to it, or when I say structured it, it has shaped it in terms of prescribing certain exceptions and exemptions by virtue of which the equal balance of convenience or equilibrium can be maintained. So what I'm trying to say is European Union with its codified set of lawmaking process, which has been tested, which has been trusted, and which has been tasted by one and all across the globe, has been the hallmark of lawmaking process across the globe. So those who would like to learn European law, they need to know this, that European law is basically pro-public law. It doesn't mean that they don't entertain commercial lawmaking process, they don't have commercial laws, that they don't get into business and nothing like that. They respect their culture, they respect their identity, their heritage, they respect their nature, right? Like we talk in India nowadays, nation first. Everything can come later. Similar, this aspect the Europeans started long back, saying that our nation and our nature, our nation and our nature, our culture, our tradition first. Rest will be respected later. That has been their approach, and that's the reason why when you respect yourself, when you respect your nation, when you respect your nature, when you respect your culture, your tradition, that is how you are shaping the public interest, public policy, or public class of your governance in your, not only in your vicinity, but that is influencing the other vicinities around you. So the entire gamut of public law, we can say that it is indebted to European Union. Your environmental laws, your labor laws, your human rights laws, all are actually extremely influenced by European Union or European law. At the same time, your commercial laws also, whatever we call it as the trade laws or world trade laws, are actually structured by European Union in terms of prescribing certain exceptions and exemptions to called commercial laws.
Right.
And when it comes to see that US, Canada, and Brazil one side, and European Union other side. And we get to see that always European Union is voicing for protecting the nature, voicing for ensuring some regulation on climate change, voicing for human rights, voicing for culture, tradition, and all that, right? That we have seen. Most of the decisions by your International Court of Justice, your Law of the Sea Tribunal, or in case of IP also, WIPO's arbitration and mediation panel, or settlement missionary, you get to European Union has been always voicing for the thought nations first and nature first, right? And that's the reason why today whatever we are able to make law and commercial law, right? That is because of the European Union, and of course India has been seconding European Union as far as protecting the environment is concerned, or protecting human rights are concerned. I mean, entire gamut of public law, we follow European Union. Of course, we also follow the rest of the world when it comes to backing commercial laws, because India follows a mixed approach, right? We are unable to get a complete ban. Canada being pro commercial law and European Union pro public law. That kind of structured standard we are yet to arrive at, but still we are maintaining that balance, wherein by exercising or enjoying or invoking the exceptions and exemptions under the commercial laws, which are basically brought in by European Union and nations, we are able to maintain that balance in terms of implementation of international trade law. And when it comes to ensuring safety and security of the environment, ensuring labor welfare, or ensuring human rights protection and all that, we are completely the approach of European Union, and that includes respecting your own ethnicity, culture, traditions, and all. So what I'm trying to say is between these two divides, as far as international law is concerned, and that we get to see even in the current context of Ukraine-Russia tussle, and as well Indo-Pac tussle as well. The perspectives and approach of international law are coming out, how different nations are reacting, how different nations are having their own perspectives, and how certain traditions and cultures are getting respected, how certain sovereignties, right, and how certain perspectives such as nation first, right, all these things are coming out. Of course, maybe this Russia-Ukraine tussle and Indo-Pac tussle is giving the international law a new dimension altogether. wherein both Ukraine and India are taking this stand that our nation first. We will not entertain anybody trying to get into without our permission. But of course, Russia being a good friend of India, I cannot make a direct statement on Russia as well. But still, I believe that these two tussles would influence a lot in as far as our international license. Of course, European as far as this is concerned, because I know European Union never, more or less, never directly participated in any war kind of situations, and they are always for humanity. They're always for protecting the people, the nation, the nature, right? And similar kind of influence they always had across the globe, not only in shaping the domestic legal spheres, but as well international legal spheres as well. So that such being the case, I should say that the lawmaking process, the beginning of law, codified framework of law, that is thanks to European Union. They showed us how to go about bringing imperialistic law, how to go about bringing codified form of law, right? Number two, as far as protecting your own sovereign nations or your own nature, your own traditions, culture is concerned, again, European Union is responsible. Protecting your environment, climate change, it's lessons that we have learned from European law. And again, balancing the trade laws while ensuring overall global governance. The European perspectives and European thoughts are actually paving the way forward as far as international society is concerned. So with these, I can say that the post that Professor Nicholas having coming 3 days, wherein he is going to extremely focus on European, try to literally try to tinker with all those things with on Euro law, maybe because of my PhD thesis, which was covering an aspect of European law and certain things, as I mentioned, I picked up from my colleague Professor Thakur as well. And of course, during the 20-25 years of my teaching, up to my own perspectives with respect to how European Union has got its impact, European law has got its impact on lawmaking process across the globe. And in particular, as far as public lawmaking process, how we're all indebted to European law and how we are respectful towards European law when it comes to balancing the trade laws as well. So with these words, while thanking the Department of Law, Mysore University, Professor Benjamin, and my two and friends, Shima and Sarah, I would thank all of you, and thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, sir, for your thought-provoking speech, and your thought was valuable for our program. Now, I have the privilege to invite our guest of honor, Professor Sudhakar, whose expertise in international law is critical to this dialogue. I would like to request Ms. Sarah to share about SARS, then sir will give his speech on the program.
It is my great honor to introduce to you today an exceptional academician and deeply respected figure in the field of international law, Professor Dr. TVGNS Sudhakar, Professor of Law at the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata. Professor Sudhakar's academic journey is marked by distinction and dedication. He holds a bachelor's degree in economics, an LLB, and an LLM in constitutional and administrative law, all from Nagarjuna University, where he notably secured the first rank in the LLM Common Entrance Examination. His deep interest in international law led him to write a dissertation on the role of International Court of Justice in the development of international law, for which he earned the first place in the university. Beyond the classroom, Professor Sudhakar has held several key administrative and academic positions. He serves as the coordinator of the School of Public Law and Governance at National University of Juridical Sciences, and has been a member of the Academic Council, Faculty Advisory Committee, Doctoral Committee, and several other institutional bodies, contributing meaningfully to the university's academic governance. He has also been chairperson of the Internal Complaints Appeals Committee and a member of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell. Internationally, Professor Sudhakar is a member of the American Society of International Law, the European Society of International Law, and the Asian Society of International Law. placing him among a global network of scholars shaping the future of international legal thought. In sum, Professor Sudhakar combines academic brilliance, scholarly commitment, and institutional leadership. His presence here today is a true privilege, and we are certain that his insights will greatly enrich this academic program. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. TVGNS Sudhakar.
Thank you, Sarah. Sir, the floor is yours. Make him unmute. Sir, we are unable to hear you. Can you make him unmute? Then.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well.
Basically, as a teacher of public international with the experience of 22 years in NUJS, so I find so a lot of significance as far as the European Union is concerned, because the regionalization of international law, the establishment of the regional institutions, it marks a significant journey in respect of the era of globalization. Already we know international law, it is intended to govern the nations. I mean, the international society, the global community. It has to be governed with a piece of set of rules, and as part of that, states, they are part of the international society, the collectivity of the states, and they are bound to respect the rules of international law. So this is at the global level, it is expected. But with the rapid progress of the subject, the development of international is concerned, it is able to witness the establishment of various regional bodies, regional pacts. So in every region, now we have different segments. Within Asia itself, we have so many institutions. In Africa, in America, similarly in Europe also. So initially European Economic Community, then Council of Europe. Now the stronger integration of the states by means of the European Union. So we know that Maastricht Treaty and the Lisbon Treaty. So though some of the treaties are controversial, ultimately led to the establishment of the European Union. So this European Union, it emerged as an important power structure at the regional level to safeguard the interest of the regional society. And apparently, we are able to see the development of the maturity of new rules. Those they were formulated at the regional level, intended to protect the interest of the concerned states in that particular geographical region. So the European Union, ever since it is established, it was striving to emerge as a supreme power bloc. So because we have different power blocks, earlier we have bipolar system, after that we have the multipolar system. And in the multipolar system, so China, US, they are emerging, and along with Russia. And ever since the Russia-Ukraine war, it was further intensified. European Union so decided to play a very important role in a strategic way to bring the Pacific nations, so the Indo-Pacific relations. So they were focused by the European Union. So they began to establish an important partnership with the Indo-Pacific nations. by entering into various bilateral treaties, various multilateral treaties, because as part of international treaty making, it is a significant step in order to promote the relations among the states. Maybe for the purpose of the promotion of the friendly relations, or for the expansion of the trade and commerce, and so with a view to formulate the defense alliance, security and cooperation. So for variety of purposes, states they keep on engaging in concluding various significant treaties. And similarly, the European Union relationship with the Indo-Pacific nations are concerned. So it is a significant development. Already, as far as India is concerned, we know European Union, it is a significant trading partner. Along with India, so the European Union, it is progressing upon entering into new relations among the Pacific countries. So mainly it is focusing upon 7 key areas. I mean, there are 7 key thrust areas. One is the sustainability and inclusiveness, of the transition. So it is very clear, we can understand what does it mean. And then the green transition. This is mainly to tackle the issue of the climate change. Still, the European Union decided to focus upon the promotion of the idea of green energy. So the green energy sector, it is intended to be encouraged among the Indo-Pacific nations. Accordingly, so the cooperation and coordination among the states, it is through the process of entering into various bilateral treaties, it is happening. And then governance of the oceans. So this is also another thrust area. The focusing upon the governance of the oceans. So mainly to prevent the marine pollution and to protect the marine life. So on those areas, also they are cooperating with each other. And then the digital governance and partnership. So this is also very important area. Thereupon, the European Union and the Pacific states, they are focusing upon. And then the defense and security. So defense and security, we know quite often now we are witnessing states, they are conducting various defense exercises, so naval exercises and the aerial exercise. So states, they are cooperating with each other. So in order to promote the development in the area of the thrust area of defense and security. And then issues of connectivity. To promote the more vibrant amount of connectivity. So states, they are focusing upon the aerials, the air services. So in a larger scale, air services agreements, they are being concluded. And at the bilateral level also, they are concluding the air services agreements to promote the better connectivity and greater connectivity among the European Union and Indo-Pacific nations. And then the human security. So human security also, it is one of the important areas. Thereupon states are working in order to promote the public health. So the security in the sense, human security in the sense, the health of the human being, and that is also focused by the European Union and Indo-Pacific nations. So these are the 7 crucial areas. There, expected cooperation and coordination, it is happening in a vibrant way. And still, European Union, it is striving to bring more and more states together in order to bring more inclusivity and to secure cooperation among the Indo-Pacific nations. So by that way, European Union wanted to expand its threshold beyond the European frontier, mainly in the wake of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, as well as the increased level of dominance of China and United States. So European Union, it is trying to focus upon the promotion of the cooperation, and by getting into more states by concluding various bilateral treaties with the Pacific nations. So the amount of exercise it is being carried by the European Union. So European Union, it is a very larger a segment at the regional level. As my colleague, so my brother Srinivasulu, he was pointing out, European law, it was gifted by European Union. So similarly, we have to understand the significance of European law and the institution of European Union, how it is having a significant existence, not only in the European region, but it is how it is impacting its relations across the globe. So along with the European Union, we are able to see the counterpart institutions. We have the Organization of African Unity, I mean, the present African Union, and then Organization of American States. So these are also the regional bodies. But in terms of the practicality is concerned, these institutions, even though they exist along with the European Union, the role of European Union, it is very strong and it is very significant in ensuring the development of new rules and new principles of international law. So this is a kind of a regionalization of international law. So globalization of international law, along with the role of United Nations we have, but now in respect of various aspects are concerned, United Nations, I don't say it is defunct, but there is some kind of a paralysis as far as the actions of the United Nations. It really frustrates the global community. And that's why states, they are focusing upon resolving into smaller pacts, so smaller unions. And that's why, so we are able to see in Asia, we have SARC, we have BIMSTEC, so we have ASEAN. So likewise, so many institutions, so they have been established to promote the interest of the states within a smaller geographical belt. And at the European level, so the European states, they organized themselves as a collective entity and established that European Union. And this European Union, it is maintaining very good relations with the Indo-Pacific nations in order to achieve the promotion of the trade and commerce, because it is entering into various bilateral free trade agreements with various states with a view to expand the trade and commerce across the region, to capture the market, mainly to capture the market across the Pacific nations. So in that way, significance and in its yeah. Thank you very much. So just I concluded.
Thank you so much, sir, for your comprehensive speech on the EU laws and Russian and Indian perspectives. Now, it is my honor to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Sebastian, whose insight into the EU digital regulation promising, and it will provoke and inspire us for this dialogue. And before we go with him, I would like to request Ms. Sarah to introduce her, then we shall listen.
It is a pleasure to introduce a dynamic and forward-thinking legal scholar whose work lies at the intersection of law, technology, and social impact, Professor Sebastian Fesso, lecturer of law at University Pompeu Fabra, Barcelona. Professor Sebastian is currently pursuing his PhD at the same institution, where his research critically examines how artificial intelligence systems influence consumer autonomy. With a focus on European Union level regulation, his work adopts an interdisciplinary perspective aiming to craft normative frameworks that safeguard consumer choice, decision-making process, and individual well-being in the digital age. Beyond his doctoral work, Professor Sebastian contributes meaningfully to the public interest through his role as a research fellow at the Good Lobby, an organization committed to democratic accountability and citizen empowerment. Academically, he has a rich and international background. He earned his LLM from the University of California, Berkeley, as a fellow of the Belgian American Educational Foundation, an honor that recognizes both academic excellence and leadership potential. Professor Sebastian's interests extend beyond the technical dimensions of digital regulation to the broader implications of technology on fundamental rights, social justice, and the democratic values underpinning European Union governance. His scholarship reflects a commitment not only to legal precision, but also to ethical accountability in the age of algorithms. It is an absolute privilege to welcome a scholar whose work bridges legal theory and regulatory practice with such clarity and conviction. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Professor Sebastian Fesso.
Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for your very kind introduction, indeed, and thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in this teaching module. I would like to thank obviously the University of Mysore and Professor Benjamin and Mr. Syed, with whom who has been very important in the organization of this module, and obviously Professor de Sadler, who has kindly invited me to intervene in this module this week. As Professor de Sadler explained, and I will jump on this. I will not take too much of your time now, but I think it is indeed a very timely moment to discuss EU digital regulation. As you've said, I conducted my PhD research on these topics, and I'm very happy to today be able to, tomorrow probably, discuss these issues with you and interact with everyone. So thank you very much for your kind introduction, and I look forward to the discussions.
So, sorry, you're not going to give any brief now about EU digital law?
No, the idea is that you introduce the EU, so you will delve into digital legislation tomorrow. So
Yeah,
the idea to give the panorama of the competences and the different legal acts, and then it will start and I will complement him. So to take the floor.
Should I explain now give the introduction to EU law now?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. I prepared a small presentation. Can I share it?
Yes, you can share.
I don't wait.
At the bottom of the page, you see there is a
Yeah, I see, but it doesn't show up.
We'll try to permit you.
Wait a second. I need to change apparently my settings. Just 1 second. I need to reopen the application. I will come back just now. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see. You shall begin. Yes.
Thanks a lot, and sorry for this this small yeah. So let me just start before going tomorrow into the discussions around the EU digital regulation. Just a very brief and just to make sure that everyone is on the same page and to very briefly introduce the main characteristics of EU law. I just wanted to go through the institutional framework of the EU very basically with an introduction on the institutions, the competences of the EU, the different sources of EU law, because we will touch upon many different instruments of EU law between this week in this module, and then finish on the general characteristics of the EU legal order. So obviously, as everyone knows, the EU is originates from the aftermath of World War II, and especially the willingness of countries like France and Germany to not repeat the atrocities of this war, no? And so at the time, in 1950, Robert Schuman, which was the French foreign affairs minister, and his declaration explained that Europe had been plagued by war for centuries, and that we needed some de facto solidarity and cooperation between states to achieve peace, basically. This started in the 50s with the European Coal and Steel Community, which implied the de facto solidarity and cooperation for the related to the two key assets to make war at the time, which was coal and steel, no? And the members, the countries wanted to go further with the Treaty of Rome of 1957 and enter into a common market, which was then the basis for the European Union. Since then, obviously, the European Union as a dynamic in a dynamic process is successively enlarged. First, starting with the 6 countries: Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, and then progressively expanding in Western Europe, then Eastern Europe after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then again more to the east and the Balkans. As a major change in the membership of the EU, obviously the United Kingdom left the European Union effective as of February 2020. So now today there are 27 member states, which means that there are 27 different national legal orders, which are all united by this supranational organization and by European Union law, EU law, which acts as really as the cement of economic and political cooperation and integration in these countries. So let me start with this first, the main institutions of the EU. The institution which is in charge of giving the political direction of the EU is the European Council, which is located in Brussels, and which is composed of the heads of states and government. They do not adopt legislation, but they give the general political direction and strategy of the EU. They meet here in this room. The European Commission, obviously, as you all know, is the executive branch of the European Union. It is the guardian of the treaty, and so it ensures that EU law is properly enforced and applied across the different member states. It has also the power to adopt sanctions against the states that do not comply, and also obviously to as an administrative body to ensure that the companies, for instance, and are complying also with EU law, and we will come back on that later. It is also the sole institution, the only institution that can propose legislation at the EU level, and so I will come back on this. It is mainly located in Brussels, and it is now, since December of last year, the current commission is the one of Ursula von der Leyen, who is in her second mandate. Each member state can designate a commissioner, which is part. So there are 27 commissioners, including the president. They are not representing their member states. They are in principle independent and should care for the interests of the EU. Another important, obviously, institution is the European Parliament, which is one institution, but which is located both in two different cities, in Brussels and in Strasbourg. It is actually the second largest democratic parliament in the world after the Parliament of India. It is composed of, its composition is proportional to the population of the different member states, and so in that sense, Germany is the most populous state, and so has 96 of the 720 seats in the European Parliament, and France, Italy, Spain, Poland, and all of the others. So it's proportional. And inside it is also a supranational institution, because the members of the European Parliament are directly elected by the population in the different member states, and they are grouped not by member state in the parliament, but by political affiliation. And so this is the current composition of the European Parliament after the elections of June of last year, and the parliament, the composition of the parliament has shifted a bit towards the right side of the political. But other key institutions include, for those member states who are part of the Eurozone, the European Central Bank, which is located in Frankfurt in Germany, and which is in charge of the monetary policy of these members. And then obviously the European Court of Auditors, who is auditing the EU in a number of ways, located in Luxembourg, just like the Court of Justice of the European Union, which is a very important international court, because it is the sole interpreter of EU law. It is the only court that can interpret EU law, and I will come back on some of its characteristics. It is, as you can see, located in Luxembourg. I think one of these towers is actually only interpreters and translators, because they need to translate and interpret all the judgments in 24 official languages of the European Union, which means that there's a lot of staff working on this. The court is composed actually of two different bodies, the Court of Justice and the General Court, which have different attributions. and they meet in different formations between two to five judges, or 15 in grand chamber, or a full court, which is a rare instance. There are different actions that can be brought before the Court of Justice of the EU. The majority of the actions that are brought before the court are actually preliminary references from national courts. So here, because of the particularity of the EU as an autonomous legal system, which is supreme to national law, the questions sometimes in the different member states, judges need to apply EU law and sometimes have questions of interpretation about EU law, and so can refer questions through preliminary references to the Court of Justice. It represents 60% of the cases, so the big majority of the cases, and it is a type of action, an indirect action that allows for a judicial dialogue between the national courts and the EU courts. And then there's a series of direct actions, for example, infringement actions, where the European Commission or other member states can bring an action towards another member state who has not implemented, who is not applying or implemented EU law correctly. And also actions of annulment, which is a typical judicial review of acts adopted by the European Union. Or also actions for failure to act, so the possibility to bring an action against an institution of the EU for failure to act on a specific issue. A summary of these different institutions is offered here. Obviously, the executive branch is the European Commission, the legislative branch is the European Parliament, and the Council of the EU, which I did not mention yet. The Council is different from the European Council. It is the Council of Ministers representing the member states when adopting legislation. So both the Council and the European Parliament adopt legislation, and we will come back to that, but they represent the member states of the member states. For the rest, I think I've already explained the main characteristics, but this is an overall structure of the institutional balance between the different institutions. As I said, the European Commission is the only one which can submit legislative proposals, and then the laws are adopted both by most of the laws are adopted both by the European Parliament and the Council of Ministers, and they need to negotiate the adoption of these laws. Meanwhile, the European Council is giving the general direction of the EU. In terms of competencies, the competencies of the EU are first governed by the principle of conferral. So the EU is only competent for the matters in which the member states have given it the power to act, and they are classified into four categories. The most important ones being the exclusive competencies, especially in areas of economic integration. So customs union, the rules on competition, monetary policy for those countries in the Eurozone, the common commercial policy, which will be instrumental in our discussions in this teaching module, and even the common fisheries policy. Then there are shared competencies, and in those exclusive competencies, member states cannot, in principle, act except if they are authorized by the EU or if they need to implement certain EU laws. For shared competencies, it covers a lot of different areas related, for example, to harmonization measures for the well functioning of the internal market, social policies, agriculture, the environment, consumer protection, transport, energy, research. So there's a lot of different areas in which the EU can act, and it's a shared competence. But if the EU acts in a specific area, it preempts the field, and so member states cannot act anymore. Then there are a series of competencies in which just like education, as Professor de Sadler mentioned previously, in which the EU does not have much competencies, but can support the actions of the member states. So education, tourism, culture, civil protection, or even health. We've seen that during the COVID, the pandemic. Obviously, everything related to trade, and which is really relevant for our discussions in this teaching module, are usually an exclusive competence of the EU. This is why the EU negotiates the free trade agreements with other nations or organizations, and it also makes sense because together, the 27 member states, the EU represents one of the largest trading blocs in the world, acting in one voice. Regarding the different sources of EU law, we need to differentiate between the primary sources and the secondary sources. The primary sources are the EU treaties and the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the EU. The last treaty that was signed was obviously the Lisbon Treaty in 2007, applicable since 2009. And then in the secondary sources, just to make sure that we are all on the same page, there is a very important distinction between regulations and directives. So regulations are adopted, so both are adopted by both the Parliament and the Council, but their application is different. So regulations are directly applicable in member states without the need for transposition into national law. So an individual or a private party can go before a national court and vindicate rights under the regulation directly. I will give you examples later. And directives are meant not at uniformity like regulations, but at ensuring harmonization between the different national laws. The different member states need to adopt national law to transpose the rules that are included in these directives. Then there are also decisions, and I think that Professor de Sadler will also discuss and give examples of some decisions, recommendations and opinions that are non-binding, and then obviously the case law of the court and international agreements. An example of a regulation is, and just to anticipate on something that we will discuss tomorrow related to the EU digital regulation, is the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, which was adopted in 2016, applicable since 2018, and which is a very relevant regulation in terms of privacy protection and data protection. It is very relevant in our discussions because this regulation has had a very big impact internationally and a global reach across the world, with many countries adopting very similar rules to the GDPR, and even companies adopting and complying with the GDPR across the board, with even outside of the EU market. Under the GDPR, companies that are not complying with strict data privacy rules can be fined up to 4% of their worldwide turnover. And very recently, at the beginning of May, TikTok, for example, was fined more than 500 million euros by the Irish Data Protection Commission under the GDPR for transferring illegally personal data of Europeans to China. So this is relevant for discussions, and we will come back on it tomorrow. An example of a directive to make a distinction is the e-commerce directive that was adopted at the beginning of at the turn of the millennium in 2000, and which basically provides a liability exemption for online intermediaries when they host or when they store content uploaded by users. I'm introducing this because we will come back on it tomorrow in our discussions about EU digital regulations. This is the basis for the development of the internet, no, as we know it. And today it must be nuanced by the Digital Services Act, which is actually a regulation that was adopted in 2022, and which doesn't change these liability exemptions, but which brings novelties in terms of liability of these online platforms and a lot of obligations that they need to respect. And just maybe to conclude on this, and I hope I didn't take too much time, but to conclude on this general introduction of very crash course on the EU law. The EU is usually is an autonomous legal order. It is not a state. It's not a confederation. It's not a state, but it's more than an international organization. It's a very peculiar organization. It's a sui generis organization of its own right. We've seen that there is checks and balances both within the EU, but also between the member states and the different institutions that that I've commented. Some institutions are more leaning towards intergovernmentalism, just like the European Council, acting mostly on unanimity, whereas other institutions like the European Commission, the Parliament, and the court are more supranational in nature. The law EU law applies to 450 million citizens in 27 different member states in 24 official languages, and so in that sense, there is a need for the correct application of EU law to have what we call dual vigilance. So the EU law is not only applied by the Commission and by the member states, but it's also applied, if you will, by private parties in courts, in national courts, or in EU courts, and so that's what we call dual vigilance. Two fundamental characteristics of the EU of EU law is that first, it is supreme to national rules, to national law of any rank. There is an obligation for national courts when there is a conflict between a national norm and an EU rule to set aside the national law. And then the second characteristic is the direct effect, which I already mentioned before, the ability of private parties to vindicate rights under EU law before their national courts. This is especially true for treaty provisions and regulations that I mentioned, especially when they are sufficiently precise and that they do not need implementation. And it's also true to some extent, to a lesser extent, for directives that have not been correctly implemented by the member states. Just to finish on one comment is that obviously the EU has very broad regulatory powers, and we will discuss a lot of regulations throughout this module. And these regulations also have a global reach. So I mentioned the GDPR, and we will discuss tomorrow probably what we call the Brussels effect, the ability of EU regulation to influence norms adopted abroad, but also of the compliance by companies and the application of those rules by companies without being obliged to outside of the EU, which is very relevant also in the Indo-Pacific region. And tomorrow I will give you many examples of how these in the digital sector, how the EU regulations are having this Brussels effect. So thank you very much um, for letting me give you this short introduction to EU law.
Thank you very much indeed, Sébastien. I propose that I comment upon your discourse. Can you keep the slides and put the very first one with the German city that has been destroyed? So I propose that we move across a few slides in the very beginning. It was an extremely clear speech, so I will provide you more information. I just came back yesterday afternoon from Germany, and what struck me in Köln and in Bremen were the pictures along the cathedrals or the main churches depicting the level of destructions in Germany with the bombing of Germany by the Allied airplanes. And so generally speaking, the main cathedrals and the main churches did not collapse. However, all the buildings around the main squares were flat. So these pictures are really contemplated by Germans on a day-to-day basis. What struck me also during my 3-day stays in Germany were the number of demonstrations regarding the two conflicts I mentioned. So that there was a demonstration from Israeli people and a contra demonstration of Palestinian people. So the conflict is exporting itself to Europe. But there were also many Ukrainian flags. So what's happening today with the massive attacks of drones across Ukraine and the counter-attack of yesterday really epitomize the feeling of our German neighbors regarding this conflict, because it's a reminder of what happened with the devastation of the main German cities. And if you can move to the picture with the Rome Treaty, please, the signature of the treaty. Yes. And so, as Sébastien correctly stressed, in the aftermath of the defeat of fascist Italia and the Nazi Germany, Europe was divided, given that the US, the Red Army, was occupied the eastern part of Europe or the central part of Europe, from the Baltic states to Bulgaria, whereas the American troops were mostly stationed on the Western Front. And so very quickly from 1947, the continent was divided in two parts. To add insult to injury, from the middle of the 1950s, the colonial powers started to lose the chunks of the empire. It started with India, as you're aware. It was followed up for UK by the independence of Ghana in 1956 under the Nkrumah government. And so the Europeans were a bit aghast because they felt the heavy human and economic loss from this World War. And on the addition, they were losing their colonial empire, and to add insult to injury, the continent was divided in two parts. And so that led a number of extremely clever politicians, mostly, as Sébastien mentioned, Jean Monnet and Maurice Schuman, to embrace a new visions. And not just to limit oneself to a peace treaty, because, as you're aware, Germany and Italy capitulate, so there's never been a peace treaty, but to embark upon a new economic model in bringing together the key resource at that time, which was coal and iron. And so that led to the creation of the very first market in 1951 under the CICA Treaty. And the success of that market, of that community, led the six first members, the six first countries, to conclude two additional treaties, the Euratom treaties on nuclear power and the General Economic Treaties that was signed here in Rome in 1957. So of interest, it's that the enterprise was successful because it brought two former Axis powers, former fascist Italy and former Nazi Germany, with countries that were defeated in May 1940, that was France, and the three Benelux countries, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and the Kingdom of Belgium. So with insight, it's striking that in a time of much uncertainty, former opponents succeeded in hammering out agreements in sharing some of their markets and in installing common institutions that were independent from the member states' interest. So, and I would like to thank also the two previous speakers emphasizing the role of Europe. But one has really to delve into history to understand that has been a pivotal shift in the 1950s. And this pivotal shift has been leading to a much more significant enterprise. And that led more recently to the establishment of the union. Could you be kind enough to put the slides on the institutions? No, maybe the slides with the different countries, Sebastian. The previous slides with the different countries. Yes. If one looks at the map, one is we've been shifting from a very small union encompassing the three Benelux countries in the center, France, Germany, and Italy. So it was really a central continental union. And the success obtained in fleshing out the different commitments led to the extension of the union. And there was a very clear table Sebastian showed you with the different accessions. And so today, the EU is fairly complex because it's really ranging from the very north to the very south, close with Cyprus, close to the Middle East conflict. Poland and Romania, and Czechia and Slovakia, bordering Ukraine that has been invaded 3 years ago, and Ireland that's somewhat separated for the Brexit that took place in 2022. So the national interests do differ. From a political point of view, I mentioned that there were Eurosceptics, strong Eurosceptic movements, be it in Romania or in Poland lately. So the French farming interests do differ from the interest of the chemical industry or the automobile industry in Germany. And so the crux of the matter is how to find a common denominator between the different social, political, and economic interests. And hopefully we will be able to discuss this issue and to have a comparative and constitutional seminar in Mysore one day in the near future to compare the Indian Federation, because India is also somewhat divided. India is a huge subcontinent from the north to the south, from the west to the east, with hundreds of languages with different traditions. And it's a bit similar. However, the key difference, as Sébastien mentioned, is that we are not yet at the stage of a confederation. This is a union where a number of limited competences have been conferred to the EU institutions, most of which are really in the middle. You look at the map in Belgium and in Luxembourg. So it means that to get a deal in Brussels or in Strasbourg regarding the regulation of artificial intelligence, regarding sanctions against Russians or Iranians, regarding anti-dumping measures against Chinese imports, regarding the tariff war we have in the USA, it's a tall order. It's a tall order because you have constantly opposing interest. The interest of Spain and Ireland regarding the recognition of Palestine as a state in its own right are different than the political interest of the Germany Republic, which is much more cautious regarding, at this stage, the recognition of Palestine as a state in its own right, you know? So it means that it's a tall order, but it's working. And if you can show the slide with the different institutions, Sébastien. There was already a perfect slide explaining here. Yes, with this one. So maybe I will start with the first one. So this is a legal fabric, indeed. And it's a tremendous legal fabric. There is an official journal that one can read in 24 different languages every day, with a significant list of regulatory measures ranging from artificial intelligence to anti-dumping to listing of substances. And so with respect to a legal fabric, the question for lawyers, who is deciding? Who has the last word? And the system is quite complicated on the account that it tries to balance the various interests, the interests of the founding members, the 27 states, the 27 member states, but also the interests of the citizens. And that explains why the legislative powers is exercised by two branches, akin somewhat to a Senate and to a chamber. So on the one hand, the European Parliament is composed of deputies, like the Parliament in New Delhi, that are directly elected by the citizens, the French national or the Estonian citizens. So this is the most significant democratic election on this planet after the Indian elections, because the Indian electorate is much broader, much bigger than the EU electorate. And all the elections are taking place the same week all across the EU. And so these MPs, they sit in different commissions, but they have a sense of legitimacy because they've been directly elected. And the crux of the matter is that the MPs, 720, so it's really impressive, they will have to negotiate legislations with the ministers. But there is no minister in charge for Europe. You know, the Indian federal government or the state government in India, you have ministers in charge of energy, another one in charge of agriculture, a third one in charge of trade, and so on and so forth. It's the same here. The Council of the EU is reckoning upon different configurations, a configuration on education and sport, and a configuration on internal market, a configuration regarding external policies, or configuration on external on the common commercial policy. So it means that it's a rather time-consuming process because you have various interests, but that do differ, whose importance differ from one country to another countries, and the two branches have to reach a conclusion, have to reach a consensus. And astonishingly enough, it's working extremely well. But what matters also from an institutional legal point of view is where is the administration? So the administration is the member states. The member states authorities, custom authorities, health authorities, economic authorities are there to implement. So the EU is not only 32,000 civil servants in Brussels and in Luxembourg. It's actually millions of civil servants from Finland to Portugal. So the national custom authorities are there in the harbor, in the airport, to control the imports of Indian goods. And if the Indian goods do not comply with safety measures or food safety measures, they cannot be placed on the EU market. And the control is carried out not by civil servants based in Brussels. They will be conducted in Hamburg Harbor, in Rotterdam Harbor, or in Dunkirk Harbor by the German or by the French custom official. So that's really, and so the European Commission is playing a role because it's the institution proposing legislation. So all the acts which I comment, they originate from the executive. So the Commission is like a think tank conceiving constantly new regulations that will harmonize the national law and then will replace. So as a matter of fact, the issue is to get rid of national legislations, and instead of having 27 different legislative instruments, it's just to cope with one legislative instrument. And that explains why the EU is so powerful as a trade market, because it's developing its own type of legislative instruments, which makes trading activities much easier. So let's imagine I put myself in the shoes of an Indian companies exporting tea to the EU. The company has to comply with the safety measures regarding the pesticide content in the tea. There is only one single measure. So I just have to check the annex whether that chemical substance is prohibited, and that's all. So the Indian companies must not juggle with 27 different health standards. So everything unfolds around this triangle: European Commission's proposing and implementing and controlling the member states, whether they are implementing correctly the different regulations, and then the Council of the Ministers and the European Parliaments achieving a consensus, and that consensus can lead to the adoptions of specific regulations and directives. Can you be kind enough to show the pictures on the competences? So as one can imagine that after the Second World War, the member state, it was a tall order to decide to set up this union, this community on steel and iron, and then to create a new, in the 1957, a community that will encompass agriculture, transport, free trade in goods, even custom unions. And so there's always gains and losses, you know, from a state point of view. One can dither whether it's better to decide at national level or whether it's better to decide at EU level in another fora. So, for instance, the United Kingdom has been very supportive to the internal markets. It's also been very supportive to the development of the common commercial policy that I shall comment upon later today. Why? Because the vision is to boost trade, you know? And so everything connected to trade, internal trade or external trade, was favored by the British authorities until 2020. However, whenever the French came with a specific agenda on social law, social European law, or when the Dutch and the Belgian came with environmental proposals to say, okay, we are suffering from pollutions, we need more regulations. There the Brits were stopping. Say, we don't want to have a social Europe, we don't want to have an environmental Europe. So there's clearly a conflict, a political conflict regarding the agenda. What can we do together? And so that's led to these categorizations of competence that took place in 2019 under the Lisbon Treaty that you mentioned, thank you, with exclusive competence. What does it mean, exclusive? Well, exclusive is the EU is the only one in charge. The states are just there to implement. And what I will deal with later today is the custom union. So we have just one custom policy and the common commercial policy. So these two competences that are of importance regarding the Indian and EU negotiations today are deemed to be exclusive. So the member states, such as Belgium or Netherlands, cannot conclude a trade deal with Venezuela or with Pakistan. That's prohibited. We are facing a tariff war. You know that the German industry is, car industries is really hit by the new US tariffs. Germany cannot decide on its own to raise its tariff on American goods. So there must be, within the Council of Ministers, a majority of states supporting an increase of tariffs on American goods. So exclusivity deprived the member states of their room for maneuver. But on the other hand, we shall also deal with internal market issues. So it's a freedom of movement of persons, of capital, of goods across the continent. And that's shared competence. Environmental issues and energy consumer issues were mentioned time and again with respect to the decarbonization of the economy. This is shared competence. So it means that whenever the EU is not reaching a consensus, whenever they don't adopt a directive or regulations, well, it means that the member states are competent for their policies. So big chunks of the energy policy are decided at municipal level, at regional level, or at national level. But let's look at the last frame. You see there is a youth, sports, civil protection. There is no harmonization there. Why on earth should we have common standard for administrative cooperation? So the Portuguese administration is different from the Greek harmonization. So there is cooperation between the different national authorities, administrations, in particular regarding tax fraud. But there is no need to have a common legal standard. When it comes to tourism, of course, you know the gastronomy in India, it differs from the north to the south. But likewise, in Europe, one eats paella in Spain and scorbrood in Germany. It's completely different dishes. So the tourism, it's a national issue. It cannot be subject to common standards. And so that explains this difference. And the EU cannot intervene outside the competence that were conferred by the states. So it's not the EU has no residual powers like a federation. So I imagine that under Indian constitutional law, the federation is endowed with the residual powers. The member states are competent for everything that's residual. Perhaps a last remark regarding the sources. There was a slide distinguishing the directives and the regulation. Yes, here we clearly see the primary source will be akin to the Indian constitutions. And I imagine that I had a chance to look from time to time to the website of the Indian Supreme Court, a very proactive approach, a very interesting approach. So I imagine that your court does also as the technique of precedence and as the ability to proclaim new principles. So this will be the primary source. And so this primary source is the legal constitutional framework empowering the institutions we did mention, Sebastian and myself, the commissions, the Council of the Union, the Parliament, to enact legislations, be it regulations, directives, or decisions. So respective analysis on the digital and decarbonized economy will place the focus mostly on regulations and far less to directives. In Germany, in my meetings, we mostly talked about different directives, far less about regulations. Why regulations? Because, of course, the aim of the teaching program is to raise the awareness about these legal fabrics and the impact it might have upon the Indian business as well as upon the Indian authorities. And regulations are directly applicable. They are uniform. And whenever it's dealing really with trading activities internally or externally, the lawmaker favors the adoptions of regulations. Why? Because a directive is like an industrial treaty. It's akin to an industrial treaty. The directive has to be transposed. Its obligation must be fleshed out into domestic law. And that's time consuming. And at the end of the day, the German law transposing the directives will be a bit uneven regarding the French law, the Belgian law. So it's a patchwork of legislation because the directives, they give this a bit of room for maneuver, a bit of a space for the member states, a breathing space. Whereas the regulations is really leading to uniformity. And so at least you mentioned one directive that you will comment upon, but the Digital Market and the Digital Service Act, their regulation, artificial intelligence regulation regarding products, sustainability of products. So the EU lawmaker clearly favors the adoptions of regulation. So thank you very much, Sébastien, for providing this eagle's view on a very broad and complex topic. But I imagine that we can answer questions because this is very important introductions, because we shall delve into a much more complex legal act. So one has to understand clearly the difference between a directive and a regulation, between the powers vested to the Council of the Union and the different configurations within the Council of Union, and what's the European Parliament doing. So you are welcome to ask us questions to the two of us, please.
Yes, you can ask your question.
Good evening, Professor. I am Gautam from National Law School. One of my questions is we discussed the European Parliament, but the number of seats is based upon proportional representation from each of the member states. In that case, states like Germany France and Italy are the most populous and hence have the most number of seats in the European Parliament. How is the majoritarianism of these states prevented? Like a smaller state, say at the bottom of this chart, how is it able to equalize with those with the larger number of seats? For example, in the Indian Parliament, which is bicameral, and you have the Rajya Sabha, the Council of the States, that gives more or less proportional, a little bit proportional representation, or perhaps a more apt example will be that of the US, where each of the states, even smaller states, have 2 members in the Senate. Thereby somehow controlling majoritarianism within US. So how is it prevented within the EU Parliament? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for a very clever question. I propose to answer first, and you can complement me, Sebastian, afterwards.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Can you show again the slide with the different the number of MPs? That was a good slide. So if one look, Belgium is electing, so the Belgian electorate in the course of that famous week where the elections are taking place, they will elect 22 states. So the Belgian population is 11 million. So I imagine we have somewhat like 8.5 electors. Just above, you have the Netherlands. Netherlands population is close to reach 18 million inhabitants, so 11 in Belgium, 18, and they are endowed with 31 seats. There, the contrasts are not so sharp, but if one looks at the top of the table, Germany with 96 seats, for a population of 82 million inhabitants, whereas France, for a population of 68 million inhabitants today. So of course, it's less important number of electors, 81 seats. So it means that proportionally, the French electorate can elect more MPs. So Germany is somewhat on the losing side. So these repartitions among the different seats is not enshrined in the treaties or in the EU constitution. It's a decision taken at the unanimity by the chief of state and government. So Sebastian mentioned that there is this the big political club that gathers in Brussels, where you have the prime ministers and the chief of state. They gather and they negotiate. And so the idea is that everything is decided at 27 without any disagreement. So this list has been subject to negotiation for years and years. There has been major crisis because at around the table, each state has its computer and is calculating the number of seats. So the idea, and that's at least a principle enshrined in the treaty, it's a degressive proportionality. As a small countries, if you look at the bottom of the list, one finds Malta, Luxembourg, Estonia, with normally in a proportional system, they might just have 1 seat. But the difficulties in granting them only 1 seat is that their population won't take part in the European project in electing the MPs. And so there might be the legitimacy of the European Parliament might fade away because there won't be this political support. That's why the traditional principle, and I imagine it applies in India, 1 man, 1 vote, cannot apply. The German elector is faring much worse than the Maltese or the Luxembourg elector. If we can move to the So but the Council of Ministers. So some rules have to be adopted at the unanimity. So that's the rules I will comment upon regarding foreign policy. So all the ministers of foreign affairs have to be agreed to support the idea put forward by the Irish, the Spanish, and the Norwegian that Palestine must be a state in its own right. There is no unanimity. And the same for Kosovo. There is no unanimity regarding the recognition of the statehood to Kosovo. So unanimity can block. But the files we are dealing with are actually files, competence regarding which the ministers decide according to a majority rules. So it means that 55% of the ministers representing the countries must support the proposal of the Commission, and these 55% of the states must represent 65% of the EU population. So there is a double criteria. To reach that double criteria, there's been major political crisis. It's really astonishing. The biggest crisis took place in Nice in a natural conference in 2000. And so finally, states like Belgium, Netherlands, they proposed the double criteria, 55% of the state and 65. Whereas in the parliament, it just for most of the rules, it's just a simple majority. But maybe Sebastian, you wish to complement me?
Yes, maybe just to complement, and I think that was very clear. But just to complement your answer, I guess if there's no two chambers in the European Parliament, actually the Council of Ministers, the Council of the EU, acts a bit as another chamber. No, it's because the laws are negotiated between the two institutions, and so even though some member states might have much less represented within the European Parliament, it's actually compensated by their power and their presence in the Council of the EU, where everyone is represented, and the decisions are taken at mostly on disqualified majority vote that you mentioned, Professor. So yeah, just to say that even though there is no two chambers in the European Parliament, there's actually this double.
Two pillars.
Two pillars, yeah. I see there is another question.
Maybe just to complement Sebastian. So the European Parliament epitomizes direct democracy. The electors will elect in some countries center-right politicians, other countries Eurosceptics, in other countries leftist or communist. So there will be a lot of political dividing lines according to the wishes of the electorate. Whereas in the council, most of the council meetings are taking place in Brussels, not far from my place, from my home, and the configuration of the ministers for agriculture will gather only the Minister of Agriculture, not the ministers in charge of tourism or foreign affairs. Whereas the configurations in charge of the foreign policy that need to address the latest attacks against Ukraine, they will gather not the Minister for Environment or for Energy, but they will gather the ministers in charge of foreign affairs. And so, of course, you have different types of majority. So it's a qualified majority among the ministers. So it's the double rules, 55% of states representing 65% of the population, of the European population. Whereas it's a simple majority in the European Parliament, but the smallest countries such as Malta, Ukraine, Luxembourg, not Ukraine, Luxembourg, are overrepresented. They're not yet a member state. So you have different legitimacy. You have a state legitimacy on the one hand, epitomized by the Council of Ministers, and you have a democratic people's political wish legitimacy epitomized by the European Parliament. So it's the combinations, the cross-fertilization between these two. It's a bit like the US-American systems where the state of Nevada is placed upon equal footing with the state of Massachusetts.
In the Senate.
And the Senate is huge, is vested with significant powers. But I really don't know well enough, and that could be an interesting discussion we could have in the near future in your university regarding the ways on which the EU differs or has similar traits to the Indian constitutional system. But there might be other questions. You're very welcome to ask us.
Good evening. Good afternoon, sir.
I think
I wanted to ask.
yes, we shall discuss during the technical session. So you have a class. This is an inaugural session. Yes.
Sorry. Should I carry on? Should I ask the question?
We shall have a discussion because this is a dialogue course. So between the 4 to 8, you have a class.
Yes, sir.
Yes, right.
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for comprehensive thought and explanation about EU laws. As we come to the end of this immersive, intellectually rewarding Jean Monnet model of this inaugural session. Now I'll take a moment to invite Ms. Sarah Benjamin to deliver the word of thanks for the dignitaries who enlightened us with this inaugural session. Then after this, I'll brief the program, then your teaching model starts formally. So, Ms. Sarah.
Respected Chief Guest, Professor Dr. Nicholas D. Sattler, esteemed keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Srinivasulu N.S., Honorable Guest of Honor, Professor Dr. T.V.G.N.S. Sudhakar, distinguished speaker, Professor Sebastian Fasu, our President of the program, Professor Dr. M.S. Benjamin, esteemed faculty members, participants, and guests. As we come to the close of today's inaugural session of the European Union Indo-Pacific Jean Monnet teaching program, it is my privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks to everyone who has made this event a grand success. First and foremost, I would like to heartily thank the Vice Chancellor of the University of Mysore and the Registrar of University of Mysore for the unwavering support to make this inauguration a success. I express our sincere gratitude to Professor Dr. Nicholas D. Sattler, our chief guest, for honoring us with his presence and sharing his valuable insights on the European Union's role in the Indo-Pacific region. We are deeply thankful to Professor Dr. Srinivasulu N.S., whose keynote address has enriched our understanding of European Union-India investment relations and the broader legal landscape. Your perspectives have undoubtedly set the tone for an engaging and enlightening course. Our thanks also go to Professor Dr. Sudhakar, our guest of honor, and Professor Sebastian Fasu, our distinguished speaker, for their valuable contributions that have added great depth to the discussions. A special note of thanks to Professor Dr. M.S. Benjamin, our president of the program, for his exemplary leadership and for steering his collaborative initiative between UC Leuven, IEE at St. Louis, Belgium, and the University of Mysore. A special thanks to Mr. Syed Kudrat Hashmi, coordinator of the European Union Indo-Pacific Jean Monnet Module Teaching Program. Last but not the least, we thank the Department of Information Communication Department, particularly Mr. Milan, the technical support staff who's worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure the smooth conduct of this program. To all the participants, students, practitioners, and scholars, thank you for your enthusiasm and commitment to this learning journey. We hope that this course will equip you with the knowledge and skills to navigate the complexities of the European Union Indo-Pacific relations. Finally, I thank each one of you for being part of this unique academic endeavor and look forward to your active participation in the sessions to come. With these words, I conclude this vote of thanks and wish everyone a productive and inspiring program ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Should we take a few minutes break?
Minutes break. So I'll be explaining this to the participants.
Yes.
Now, about the program, as the coordinator, I will have the privilege guiding the participants. So please be informed the Zoom link, which is already shared to your email ID. This Zoom link is exclusive, not inclusive. So those who have been shortlisted for this course, they can participate. So you can use the single Zoom link and it will remain the same for every day, all sessions. Today, both professors will speak about legal foundation of European Union and the European mechanism for international engagement. From tomorrow, which is Tuesday, so there will be technical aspects of the regulation and digital economy, whatever the schedule has been shared already to your email, you can follow that. About your examination is scheduled for 5th June. It will begin by 5:30 p.m. Indian time. And you are expected to submit your complete paper by 11:30 p.m. On the same day, not tomorrow, on the same day. So for further details, including your examinations and so on, it will be shared through a Google form to us. Then I will email you the details. And I have already shared my number in case if you have any technical issues with the Google form, which you cannot submit on the time, you can write us via email. And kindly note that your examination will be essay format and reflective in nature. That is based on the topic, whatever it is covered during the teaching sessions. All submitted paper will be checked for plagiarism using Turnitin software. And please ensure that the work is original and it is properly referenced, whatever I have discussed. We appreciate your cooperation and wish you a success in your studies. So, sir, we will take a brief break. So then we begin with the first session today.
Yes. Could we take a 5 minutes break?
Yes, sir.
I just need to eat something because then I will go to speech. And
yeah,
then
we shall start after how many minutes?
I just need, I propose to take a short break because it's already late.
Yeah, how many minutes?
7 minutes. Is it okay for you?
For me, it's fine. We can take 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the time I will drink a coffee, so I'd be.
Yes, please.
And so my lectures will be in the continuation of what the Eagle's views Sebastian Facio has been proposing. So that Eagle's view was really need to understand the ways in which the different institutions cooperate to reach that consensus. And this cooperation must take place within the confines of the competence that have been conferred to the EU institutions by the drafters, or the masters of the treaties. So that's really of importance as a starting point, and when we will quickly realize how complicated it is to draw the different dividing line between the various policies that could have an impact upon the relationships between your country and the EU.
Right. So we shall have a break. The participants also, you can join us. Now it is 4:25, exactly by 4:35.
10 minutes.
Yes, 10 minutes.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.